Hi, so in today's video I'm going to show you how I created this door hanger. This was all made directly on the ScanNCut machine. There was no need to go into Canvas Online or anything like that. If you want to know how I made it, keep watching. So in the video I'm going to show you how I created the door hanger, but I'd filmed the whole process and I got to the part where I was about to assemble all my cut shapes and then realised that the video wasn't on record. So I'm going to walk you through this first process and then I'll show you all the cut pieces and how to assemble it. So the first thing I'm going to do is come into the patterns. I'm going to come into the second icon here with the flower and the parcel. Then I'm going to come down to the icon on the bottom that's got the frames. I'm going to scroll to page 5 and I'm going to choose the green door hanger. I'm going to leave the size as it is at the moment and say OK, OK and set. And then I'm just going to drag it into the middle of the page in the hope that you can see it better. Now, I want to cut this door hanger from a piece of A4 card, UK A4 card, which is 8.25 by 11.75. But I also want to cut a matting layer in some designer series paper. So I want this shape bigger initially so that then I can then cut it again in paper to layer it up. So if I come into the editing icon and come into the size icon, and if I turn the seam allowance on, which I've got set to 1/4 inch in my machine, and by that I'll go to settings, scroll to page 3 and you can see my seam allowance is set at 1/4 inch and I'm going to say OK. So that means when I apply a seam allowance to any shape, it will be 1/4 inch bigger on all sides. So if you look at this size now, it's 10.63 by 7.92 and that will fit on my piece of UK A4 card as it is. But as I said, I want to cut this bigger so that I can then cut it again at this size in designer series paper and it will layer up. So if I apply the seam allowance, it takes the width up to 8.42, which is far too big for the piece of card I want to use. So I'm going to turn off the seam allowance and I'm going to take the height down to 10 inches. Okay, so at 10 inches high, it's 7.45 wide. If I now apply the seam allowance, it's 7.95. So I know this will now fit on my piece of UK A4 card. It might be a tight fit, but it will fit. And I'm using A4 card because the colour that I want to use, I've only got in A4. I've not got in 12 by 12. So I'm going to say OK, OK, and I'm going to do a background scan. Now I've got my ScanNCut mat loaded up with my piece of Stampin' Up pool party card. So I'm going to load it into the machine and I'm going to do the background scan and say go. Okay, I know you can't see my mat, but it's more important that you see the screen and I'm hoping that you can see this quite clearly, so I'll try and come in a bit more. So now I can see my piece of card that I've just scanned and I can see my door hanger. I'm going to drag it over onto the card and then I'm going to come into this editing icon and into the zoom and I'm going to zoom to 400%. So I can see that it fits on the card at the top comfortably and I know that because the card is bigger than the height of my design. I just want to grab the little red box and grab it and drag it on so it's just on, on the card. I'm going to scroll over and make sure that I've got enough room on this side, and I have. I could actually take it over a fraction more. I'm going to scroll down and I can see that it comfortably fits on at the bottom. As I said, it is a tight fit because I want to get the biggest size door hanger I can get from my piece of A4 card, but it does fit. So at this point I would say OK, OK, OK and cut it out. Let's just pretend that I did that. Okay, so now I'm just going to unload this mat and I'm going to select the back button. I'm going to choose my design. I'm going to come back into the editing icon, back into the adjustment of the size icon, and I'm going to turn off the seam allowance. And I'm now going to do exactly the same thing with a piece of designer series paper. So I'm going to load in my designer series paper. I'm going to say OK, OK, and do a background scan again and go, which I'm not going to do because you don't need to see me scan a piece of card, but I have got a piece of 12 by 12 on my mat, so I know that if I keep this just in the top left hand corner, it will cut from my piece of card. So once that was cut from my piece of patterned paper, I hit the back button and then I went to add, back to pattern, and went to the fonts, and I chose this stencil font here on the second down on the right hand side. I've got my capital locks on here, and I chose a letter A and I said OK and set, and then there's the A on the screen. I dragged it over to the left hand side of the door hanger and then went into the adjustment icon again and into the editing icon, and I took the height up, and I just kept taking the height up until I thought it was wide enough to fit on this half of the door hanger. And once it looked about right in the width, I came to this icon here to untick the aspect ratio, which lets me adjust the height and the width independently, and I took the height up to 4 inches. And then I just positioned it where I thought it looked about right. Then I said OK, went into the magnifying icon and then scrolled down so I could see it, and I just positioned it so it fitted centrally between the dashed fold line here and this edge. And then I said OK, and when I was happy with where it was positioned, I said OK, OK, and I sent it to cut. So that's how I cut the two shapes. So now I'm going to go to the home button and say yes, it's okay to delete all the patterns. And I'm going to show you how I chose and sized the decorative elements. So I'm going to come into patterns, I'm going to come into the icon with the flower and the parcel again, and I'm going to come into this first icon here. I'm going to scroll to the last page, and I chose this flower here, the second one, the pink one. I'm going to say OK, OK, and set, and there it is. Now I want 2 of these flowers and I want them in different sizes. So with the flower selected, I'm coming into the editing icon, into the icon that lets me change the size. I could have done it on the previous page, but I just want to show you the process that I worked through. I'm going to make the first flower 1.75 inches in height, and that will adjust the width accordingly. Okay, and I'm going to say I want 2 and say OK. So I've got one at 1.75 there, and I'm going to put the other one over here. With this one selected, I'm coming back into the editing icon and I'm going to make the height 1.5. And that will adjust the width accordingly and say OK. So I've now got 2 flowers, one at 1.75 inches high and one at 1.50 inches high. I'm going to say OK and go to add. I'm going to go back to the patterns, back into this second section, scroll to page 3 and choose this leaf with like the little berries on. And again, I can adjust the height here, or I can go further on. Now I know that I want this at 1.75 high, but I want more than one. So I'm going to, if I only wanted one, I could set the height here. I'm going to say OK, OK. I'm going to say set, bring it down here, Then go back into the editing icons and change the size. So I want to make it 1.75 inches high. And I'm going to say I want 3. And OK. So I've now got 3 leaves. So what I did at this point, I loaded my mat up and I put a piece of Bermuda Bay card up in this top left hand section of this first 6-inch section of my mat. In this second half 6-inch section I put a piece of Pool Party, and in this bottom 6/2 section, 6-inch section, I put some Bermuda Bay card. I said OK, I put all those onto my mat and I did a background scan, and then I just positioned each part onto the respective card once I'd scanned it, like I showed you how to do the door hanger. I said OK and cut, and that was it. That's all finished now, so I'm just peeling away the waste from each one of the designs, and then I'm going to peel away the leaves and the 2 flowers, and this project is nearly finished. I've got all my elements assembled now. I'm just going to fold the door hanger in half on the dash line that the machine has put in for me, and I'm just going to burnish the fold so it lies nice and flat. I only want to use 1/2 of this designer series paper, so I'm going to fold it in half on the dash line again that the machine has put in, and then I'm going to cut it in half on that dash line and just layer up the section that's got the cut out A letter on the front of my hanger. So I'm just positioning the dashed line in the cutting groove of my paper trimmer, and then I'm just going to chop this in half. So now I'm going to apply some wet adhesive, and I'm going to stick the 2 halves of this door hanger together, and then I'm going to apply some more adhesive to the designer series paper, and I'm going to stick that on the outside. Just going to fold it in half and burnish it down. I'm going to use my bone folder to just disperse the adhesive within the card so that it all sticks. And then I'm going to do exactly the same with this piece. Okay, so that's how it's looking so far. So now it's just a case of decorating. I've got some 3D foams and I've got my bone folder, and I'm just going to hold on to the centre of the flower and gently curl each one of the little petals, and I'm going to do the same with this other piece of card. Then I'm going to use a dimensional and stick that onto the middle of the red flower and layer up the blue flower. I'm just going to slightly offset the petals and then stick that down in the middle and just bend up the petals, and I think I'm going to squish them in the middle as well, just to give them a little bit more dimension. I'm going to bring in some embellishments, and I think I'll use the glitter enamel dots, and I think these are Coastal Cabana, and I'm going to use the biggest one and place it into the middle of this flower. So now it's just a simple case of assembling and positioning. So I think I'll put the flower at the top of the letter A, and I think I will put these Bermuda Bay leaves tucked in behind. But I'm going to put the flower on dimensional, so I'm going to use a big dimensional for this. And again, I'm sorry about the light. I am trying to make it so there's not as much glare, but it's difficult at this time of year. So I'm just going to peel the backing off the flower and give it another bit of a scrunch up, just to give it, you know, some dimension. Position that on the door hanger at the top of the letter A, and now using my wet adhesive, I'm going to apply some of the Tombow adhesive on the back of the leaves, and I'm just going to tuck these in and stick these down underneath the flower, just where I think they'll look okay, really. So this one I'm going to put under the bottom, I think. And because the flower's on 3D foam, it makes it easier for tucking in the leaves. And then this last one I'm just going to have hanging over the edge of the door hanger. So I'm lifting up the leaves and just positioning it in, and then holding down the wet glue just for it to take. And then it's finished. So here's how it's looking, but I will show you a better picture at the end. And then one final little thing, I'm going to use some of my glimmer mist that I made, and if you shopped with me earlier on in the year, you will have got this as a free gift from me. And I'm just going to give it a quick spritz with this shimmer mist to give it a little bit of a glittery effect. So here's the finished project. I hope you liked it, all made from simple shapes within the ScanNCut machine. Don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.